This is Leeds Student Radio.
Sounds.
Students
in Leeds.
Delivering over 100 hours of broadcasting made by 300 students every week.
Hello.
Hello. Hello and welcome.
And
it's all about you.
You.
This is Leeds Student Radio.
Would you say we'd be venturing into a zone of danger?
Danger Zone, every Friday from 7 p.m. at Fab Cafe. Playing the pop and rock anthems you love. With drink deals all night long, there's only one place where everyone's your wingman. Danger Zone, only at Fab Cafe.
A family-run business with over 40 years' experience in providing affordable and reliable accommodation.
Winners of the Leeds Landlord Award.
You should look no further than Spencer Properties when choosing where to live next year.
Spencer Properties own all the homes they let out and work closely with the Knowledge Project to promote safe, reliable housing for student and professional communities.
Visit spencer-properties.co.uk for more information and follow @SpencerProp on Twitter for all their latest listings.
Spencer Properties, the #1 provider of quality accommodation in Leeds.
This is Leeds Student Radio.
Live from Leeds University Union.
At the heart of your student life.
The things that matter to you.
To you.
To you. To you. Your news.
Your views.
Your life in Leeds.
Live at 5.
This is The Beat in association with Amber Cars.
Download our app for the quickest taxi service in Leeds.
Broadcasting 24 hours a day from Leeds University Union.
The sound
of students in Leeds.
This is Leeds Student Radio.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Natural World here on Leeds Student Radio. You're listening to Emma Caton and I'm pleased to welcome my co-host for this year, PhD student Ekbal Hussain.
Hello.
Hi Ekbal, how are you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
So Ekbal, as I said, is a PhD student here at the university. Would you like us to tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a third year PhD student in the School of Earth and Environment and I study earthquakes. Pretty cool, huh? But we use satellites from the European Space Agency to fly over a certain area of the world and study how much it moves in earthquakes, which is pretty cool. It's good fun.
All fascinating stuff?
Oh, yes. I'm sure I'll talk about it at some point.
And you're third year now?
I am. Scary stuff.
So 1 year left.
Thesis write-up soon. 1.5. That's 1.5.
Thesis write-up soon. That's always the tough part.
Don't talk about that. Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm a third year of my degree, so it's nowhere near as bad as thesis write-up, but it's still pretty intense, so I can feel your pain. So
ask me again in a year's time.
Okay, in a year's time. Yeah, we'll see how you're feeling then. Probably won't be doing the radio show because you'll be
probably not
worked up.
Unless someone offers to write my thesis for me.
Well, there are places you can do that, but we won't discuss those. We will not discuss those now because that is extremely controversial.
And probably illegal.
Yeah, very illegal, actually. But anyway, we're delighted to be here for our very first show of the series. If you were listening to me last semester, I did a show very similar to this called The Nature Show. Natural World is an hour long, I'm delighted to say, so you have a whole hour of listening to both me and Ekbal for you to enjoy. We won't talk you to death, we promise. And instead of the usual wildlife facts and information that we were given last time, we were also going to have a lot of information about earthquakes and environment, Earth, just everything related to
and the planet we live on.
The planet we live on, that's a very good way of putting it. So, coming up today, for our wildlife news, we've got a big story to do with the badger culling, which is set to carry on later this year and into next year. Very controversial topic we'll move on to in a bit. Also, some fantastic news. India has decided to ban cosmetics imports that have been tested on animals, which is absolutely fantastic news. And we'll be also talking about the incredible new discovery that kangaroos actually used to walk, not hop, which was quite an interesting thing to picture. And then in our Earth and Environment section, you may have heard in the news lately that there's a hurricane expected to hit the UK sometime in the next week, so we'll give you a bit of information about that. And also in celebration of Earth Week, is it?
Yes, Earth Science Week.
Earth Science Week. We're going to be telling you the 100 best geological sites in the UK, so you've got that to look forward to coming up in a little while. So, without further ado, we shall start on our main story, which was badger culling in the UK. So, this was quite a huge topic in the news earlier this year and certainly last year, because, yeah, obviously caused massive controversy all over the country. If you haven't heard yet, badgers were thought to be the main spread of the disease bovine tuberculosis, which was found in cattle, and it was killing large amounts of cattle across the country. And as a result of trying to stop this spreading, they decided, we should probably kill all the badgers. That might help solve the problem. It's obviously been massively controversial in animal welfare groups, because, not really great that they're deciding to kill a very large population of badgers. Last year they managed to kill 1,800 badgers in the pilot areas of West Gloucestershire and West Somerset, and around 1,000 are expected to be killed in this next cull that's set to begin within the next few months in the same areas. So, the government insists that culling's necessary, but the people who are protesting against this are saying that it's not effective or humane, because obviously there's been massive issues where people who are shooting the badgers are farmers, and they're not doing it properly. They're basically shooting them and then just leaving them to die, which is
their purposes are different, aren't they? They want to save their cattle, whereas we as scientists want the badger culling to be done in the most humane way possible.
Of course,
if it's needed.
Well, that's the thing as well. They are discussing, like, is it worth doing it? And some people do think that culling them is not going to work unless you kill huge numbers of them.
Yeah, we basically have to eradicate them to completely cure bovine TB. But, there's better ways to get around the problem, for sure.
Oh, there certainly are. As I was discussing earlier as well, the whole thing is when a badger is killed, because they're quite territorial, another badger will come and fill its territory. So it's more to do with the range of badgers, which is going to cause that problem. It's not culling them isn't necessarily going to help it. And they've even suggested that it's not even the badgers that are the main things that's killing them, have they? It's with the groups of cattle, I suppose. It's spreading quickly.
So it spreads within
them.
the cattle a lot quicker than a badger could possibly give it to the cattle in the first place. So
I
think proper management of identifying which ones have been infected by TB and then
doing something quickly,
isolating them and keeping them away from the rest of the cattle. That will be a lot better, I think.
It will be much better, and it's something they can try as well, because this was only a pilot, and there is a lot of debate. Has this actually worked the way they were expecting? The government organisations are still insisting it has,
of course,
and they are saying we should try and carry on. But I think there are other methods that we should try, and people have obviously said vaccination as well is a big thing they can try and look into more. But I think the only problem with that is expense.
Yeah,
I suppose it would be a very
Who's
expensive.
going to pay for all this?
And the government don't really want to spend all this money on the culling, when I'm sure there are other things they want to spend it on. It even said in an article I read that bovine TV is expected to cost the British taxpayers nearly £100 million in 2014, which is a huge amount of money. And I don't know how much of that is actually the badger culling, how much has that gone towards that, but maybe it has been trying to vaccinate. And, but they have said the badger culling is a very expensive thing to run, because they need to get all these people out, and they've actually persuaded the farmers to fund it themselves, because at the end of the day they've said to them, it's your cattle that are in danger, so you go and do it. So they've kind of got around some of the costs there with
which
that.
is probably why we're having the problem of discussing whether they're being killed in a humane way possible, because some farmers sadly would want to kill as many as possible as quickly as possible, and won't be thinking about killing them in a nice way.
No, it's actually true. And in 2013 they actually had a target that animal welfare organisations kind of set them, saying that certain percentage of the badgers had to die humanely for it to carry on. It did not meet that target, unfortunately, and it said 22.8% of badgers were still alive after they'd been shot, which they said was just not acceptable at all.
It's not right, no.
Not acceptable, because like you said, they just shoot them and then don't want to waste their bullets, and because they're funding it themselves and all that they're just like, no, just leave it. And obviously it's not humane at all, and I think this is the main reason why protesters are saying, okay, if you're just going to do it like that, and stop. It's just
Yeah.
it's not
Ultimately,
gonna
I
work.
think the cure might be a combination of both. Maybe managing the badger populations, but also proper management and care of the cattle. So New Zealand is a great example. They're probably the world leaders in this field, where they've managed to reduce badger population to TB occurrences by like 90% and that's through, again, in New Zealand it's transmitted through possums. They have a strict management control, but also they have a really strict managing of the cattle. If there's cattle tests, they do regular tests on all the cows, and if there's any that come up with symptoms or have the potential to have symptoms, they're isolated and looked after properly. Whereas we don't have that kind of system in the UK as such.
No, that's really good, because it's basically exactly the same situation, isn't it? But with possums.
Yeah.
So maybe, we could look at studies like this and they could learn from it and see, well, what have they done? This has been successful.
Exactly, yeah.
So, maybe they should try and apply it over here. I mean, they have said currently 26,000 cattle have been slaughtered in England that have had TB just to try and prevent the spread. But, they've kind of said, okay, that's an unacceptable number, and I think that's where they freaked out a bit and gone, right, let's kill all the badgers, which, is not good at all.
Just on a personal, I do like badgers. I don't want them people to kill them.
I love badgers,
really cute.
They do have quite a bad reputation as being vicious, but I love badgers. I have never actually seen one in the wild. The only time I've seen one is when I used to volunteer for the RSPCA in a wildlife hospital, and we did get one brought in that had been hit by a car. And, you don't appreciate the size of them, I don't think, until you see one.
Are they a lot bigger than you think?
They're a lot bigger than you think. Everyone in like, oh my god, that's massive. That's huge. It was,
I've never seen one. No.
I've seen one dead on the road, but okay. I won't mention that either because that's quite sad. But yeah, at night there's a road that was near me from where I live in Stoke-on-Trent, and there must have been a lot of badgers in the area, and we quite commonly saw dead badgers on the road. And just the bodies were huge. You just thought, wow, I kind of also feel sorry for the car that hit that. I bet that was a bit of a shock, just not what you expected. But no, they are massive, and unfortunately, like I said, they do have this bad reputation, which
it's quite sad.
It's part of our UK wildlife, though. So
I know, we should be proud to have badgers in the UK.
We should. I love badgers for one. I absolutely love them.
Well, my first experience of badgers was reading the book Animals of Farthingwood when I was a kid. I don't know whether any of you guys remember.
I remember that. Yeah, I never properly binged watch it, but binge read it. Sorry, but I know of the stories, and it's really cute. Good first memory of badgers there.
I
know. But anyway, this is actually a 4-year plan that the government have backed all these badger culling, so it is expected to carry on if it continues to be, as they put it, a success. Other people might disagree with that, but I don't know. Let us know your thoughts. Message us on Facebook, and let us know what you think about this very controversial situation. Because
wasn't it also the case that previous badger culling episodes had proper scientific committees to manage and look after them?
They did, yes,
but
that's very true.
These new ones are not going to have a scientific committee.
No, it's very true, because going back to the thing about where they monitored it to see if they'd been killed humanely, it was actually done through observations of scientists going there and saying, right, this isn't being done properly. Whereas now it's up to the people who shoot the badgers to come forward and say it was still alive after I shot it.
Oh dear.
Which, as you can tell straight away, I can't imagine many people are going to do that. I really can't imagine many people are going to do that at all. So, oh well, we'll just have to see what happens.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because, well, you can understand why it's needed, but it could be done in a better way.
It really could. So, like I said, let us know what you think about it. Give us a message on Facebook, and yeah, we might even discuss what you've said in the next show, like what other people's opinions are of it. And
let us know your thoughts.
Let us know your thoughts. Okay, so we're going to move on now to our fascinating facts section for our wildlife.
Da, da, da.
So, Ekbal, I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh dear, okay.
What do you think? We refer to a group of crows as a murder of crows.
Oh gosh.
Why do you think we do that?
Because they have a murderous glint in their eyes.
That's actually a very good guess.
Have you seen the crows? Like, if you're out in the park and they look at you,
eyeing you up.
Ooh, yeah. Like, I could take you. It's like, does that look?
No, I actually know what you mean. You know, crows are, you know, all black, very intimidating kind of birds. So
and the scavengers, which is always puts in people's mind, they're like dirty kind of thing.
Well, you've actually hit the nail on the head there. You actually have. A murder of crows actually came from medieval times, and it was because of that reason, because they used to scavenge on carcasses. And obviously, when there'd been a big battle in medieval, people killing each other with swords and things, it was quite often you saw crows on the battlefield feeding on the bodies, and that's kind of where this whole theme of kind of superstition came from with crows. A lot of the time they were actually ravens, not just crows, and that's where this kind of crossover between ravens and crows has come from, because there's also a lot of superstition with ravens as well, like particularly in the Tower of London. There's this whole thing about, you know, this prophecy that was made years ago about if the ravens leave the Tower of London, then the monarchy will fall. And
really?
It's a true thing, and this is where the actual shocking part comes in. Some of the wings of the crows in the Tower of London, still to this day, are clipped, just so the ravens can't leave the Tower of London. Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's this suspicion that's kind of lasted for so long that, you know, it's kind of become a tradition now to keep clipping the wings of these crows so that they remain in the Tower of London, because, you know, I think it's all part of the tourism, to be fair.
Think so. It's probably to keep the tourists happy.
Yeah. I do have that suspicion, to be honest, that they are doing it.
If they do, I do hope they're well looked after.
I hope so. Well, they actually are, because I went quite recently, and, you know, they have lots of bird food out all the time. You just see them hopping along the grass, just having a, you know, just like, and so, okay, this is not bad.
With still the murderous glint in their eyes.
Yeah. But no, refer to what is a group of ravens called again, actually? And it's an unkindness of ravens. An unkindness of ravens. An unkindness of ravens.
Or an ostentation of peacocks, something strange like that.
It's really funny, like, when you find out these different, like, connective, like, you know, words for, like, a group of animals. And I always thought the cutest one was a puddle of puppies.
I did not know that.
I think that is adorable. A puddle of puppies. I hear that. That's just so cute.
Oh,
and yeah, there are crazy names out there for things, but I think a murder of crows is quite fitting.
It's one of my favourite for sure.
It is, and like I said, this whole thing of superstition where, you know, bad things are going to happen if the crows are around and all this, but there has, like I said, been that crossover between crows and ravens. People often do get them a bit
Well, they're
confused.
also similar, actually. It's hard to tell them apart sometimes.
They actually are. A raven is a lot bigger than a crow, for people at home that didn't know that. I have actually, like I said before, when I used to work at the RSPCA, we actually had a raven in once, and you don't appreciate how big they are until you turn up close. It's like, oh wow, it is quite a lot bigger than a crow. Ravens are absolutely massive, but from a distance they obviously look exactly the same. They're all black birds, like quite big size, so you can understand why people have got a bit confused about that.
Not surprising.
Our next fascinating fact: how do bats navigate long distances? This is another key. A lot of people who try and answer this question say it's something to do with echolocation, because that's the main way bats move around. But obviously they can't really use that if they're migrating long distances. It doesn't work like that. It's only for close distances. And they are actually another animal that uses the Earth's magnetic field to travel different distances. And not just that as well, they use a lot of different navigational cues, like they used polarised light, particularly when it's dark, to try and navigate their way to, you know, new food sources and things like that.
I did not know that.
And yeah, it's quite incredible because you know, they can travel long distances and also come back to where, you know, they came from as well. And I can't remember where it was now. I think it was in Africa, where I read an article once where there was these bats that flew, I think it was like 10,000 miles or something like that, to a breeding site. Male bats flew 10,000 miles to this breeding site where the females were, bred with them, and then flew 10,000 miles back.
That's dedication, isn't it?
That is, yeah. I mean, you know,
lads out there.
I know. I was thinking that travelling all that you know, distance just to mate. That's pretty impressive. That's very impressive.
That's really impressive. That's dedication.
That is, you know, just motivation to save the species. Just, I'm going to fly this distance.
Can we just say that the girls out there, please don't get any ideas from this.
Yes. What kind of ideas would they get, Ekbal?
Just saying.
Oh, I don't think anyone will get any ideas, really. Let's hope not.
Let's hope not.
Okay, so our good news story for this week is India has finally banned the import of all cosmetics tested on animals into their country, which is absolutely fantastic news. It was announced on Monday, and this came just 5 months after they banned cosmetic testing on animals in their own country. So it's happened quite soon after they've decided to say, all right, we don't want anything to do with this anymore, not just from our own country, but getting it in from other countries as well. So it's really good, and they have joined the European Union and also Israel, who has also banned animal testing on cosmetics and also no longer imports it. So
it's very good.
Very good news, yes. And I think a lot of animal welfare organisations had a lot to do with that, like protesting and
campaigning,
things.
Yeah, you just got to show some peaceful campaigning does and can have a good impact.
It can have, some people often question, does it work? If we're campaigning for something, does it actually happen, or is it just kind of people not really listening?
It does depend on how and what you do it, actually.
It does, yeah. I have seen some very bad campaigns of things where they definitely get themselves noticed, but I think the main thing is people don't like being preached at.
For sure, yes.
People are willing to be reasoned with in a calm kind of way, but no one likes to be preached at. So, I'm very glad that whatever they've done, it certainly works.
It's great.
So.
Well, India's doing some really great stuff at the moment, which is, it's good to see that this is just one of a whole number of great things in terms of innovation and developing the country's interests. So, yeah, hats off to India.
Hats off to India, certainly. So, no more cosmetic imports for them. And let's hope other countries now follow suit that still, use the products that have been tested on animals, and maybe one day it can be completely eradicated. So
America. I didn't say anything.
So, let's just pretend that didn't happen there.
I didn't say anything.
Not putting our finger directly at any countries, but just any countries. And our discovery of the week, I have to say, this was an article that actually Ekbal showed me earlier this week that I thought, wow, really? Was that they found out that giant kangaroos used to walk on 2 feet. These are obviously an extinct group of kangaroos that existed back when Neanderthals were alive and mammoths were kind of walking the earth. And yeah, I kind of just sat there for a moment and tried to imagine what it would be like to think of a kangaroo walking, just strolling between sites.
I know, it's quite bizarre, isn't it? Because you always associate them with hopping places.
You do, that's the thing, because we've got so used to them hopping now that just trying to imagine one just walking, it just seems extremely bizarre. And yeah, they were up to 3 times larger then as well, weren't they? So
they're much larger. I guess that was one of the reasons they thought, because obviously there is a limit to how much you can hop depending on how big you are. You can't imagine elephants hopping around anywhere, for example.
No, that's true. That's true.
So it's all about weight on your feet.
Well, elephants are the only animal that can't jump, the only mammal. And that might be to do with the fact that they are the largest land mammal. They are so heavy that they can't obviously do that. And
severe arthritis. If they start jumping around.
It can't be good for them. It really can't be good for them. But yeah, it must have a big thing to do with the weight. And it did say they were up to 240 kilograms, which is quite huge. And they could get up to 2 meters tall. So, and that's it actually does say here that they did weigh the same as an adult male lion, and they are pretty heavy animals, I can say that. So
have you seen the picture they posted on the BBC news article?
I have, yes.
It looks like something from C.S. Lewis.
It really does. It is on BBC News right now, so if you want to go and take a look at that, there is an amazing picture that people have drawn of what they think this kangaroo looked like. And it kind of looks like a dinosaur, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
It looks like a dinosaur, but with like kind of big pointy ears.
Yeah.
So it
should be in Narnia.
It should, yeah. I mean, like, our kangaroos today, they use their front legs to kind of paw at the ground and, like, forage. Mm-hmm. Whereas back then, they used them kind of stubby arms to kind of get food from trees, to kind of hold onto trees and, like, feed and stuff. So they didn't really need the long arms then. But maybe it's because they were too big and they didn't kind of have that reflex to kind of, like...
Here's an interesting kangaroo fact. Do you know what... Because kangaroos, obviously, a lot of them living in Australia. And do you know how they keep themselves cool in the hot temperatures?
Go on, what is it?
They lick their arms.
They lick their
arms, and the saliva the saliva evaporates slowly. It takes that heat from their body. So you'll see on the nature documentaries that kangaroos very often in the midday heat they sit on a bush and lick their arms.
Wow.
It's a cooling mechanism. It's very cool.
I've never actually seen or heard of that. That's quite a cool fact.
The other thing they do, they dig holes and they a little like a little nest kind of thing, and they just sit it in the ground because the top layer of the soil is a bit warmer generally. And they lick their arms. It's very cool.
Wow.
Interesting heat mechanism.
If I ever go to Australia, I'll look out for that and like just yeah, there's kangaroos.
Well, you'll probably be avoiding them with cars instead first.
Oh yeah, probably. You know, it's don't kind of want a kangaroo jack situation. Although, have you seen that film?
I have a long time ago now.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a very good idea to put £10,000 in the pocket of a kangaroo, jam for its put on a kangaroo. So if you watch Kangaroo, don't get into that situation in Australia. Which I'm not saying you would. It's not something that would happen.
No, I don't think it comes to your mind for someone. Let's put a jacket on a kangaroo, shall we?
Yeah, I think that film did kind of, well, I suppose there are people out there that would, do crazy things like that, Just hear some
wouldn't put it past some people, would you?
Oh, yeah. No, you actually wouldn't. You hear some bizarre things people have done, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was real anyway. So I think that is it for the wildlife section today. We are going to now play our first song as a little break so we can rest our mouths. And our first song is, if you've seen the film Brave by Disney Pixar, it's one of their theme tunes. And this is Touch the Sky by Julie Fowlis. That was Touch the Sky by Julie Fowlis. What a lovely song that is, isn't it?
Beautiful, yeah. Anything Scottish, I think, is quite nice.
Very Scottish. Just the bagpipes and everything's just like really nice music. I really love that song.
Beautiful.
So anyway, for our section now, I'm going to hand over to Ekbal, who's going to give us the latest news on Earth and environment. So what have you got for us, Ekbal?
Okay, so like I said, I am an Earth Science student, so my section is going to be all about the Earth and environment. Okay, so the first main story of this week is, I'm sure many of you have read it in the news, but in case you haven't, we have a hurricane coming towards us. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, but actually, it's a hurricane that, as a hurricane starts off in the Gulf of Mexico and moving up towards along the American coast, and it hit Bermuda actually yesterday, I think, or earlier in the week, and it's coming towards England. Scary stuff, huh?
Wow. Should we be panicking?
No. But well, we should be aware because the hurricane is losing its energy now, and by the time it hits the UK, it won't really be a hurricane. It'll just be a big storm. But yeah, the Met Office, the guys that do the weather reports in the UK have said that we should be prepared for heavy rains, especially in the south west coast and northern England. And
is that any different to our usual weather? Heavy rains?
Add a bit of wind to it.
Oh, okay. Now I see the scale of the whole thing now.
Well, and also, guys at Met Office said that, well, I'm going to really quote, it says, what is left of it will be strong winds, some gale force winds at times, and is currently expected to arrive late on Monday night, early Tuesday morning, and is tied to the reason why there's a yellow warning issued by the Met Office for quite a large portion of the UK. So be prepared for lots of rain and strong winds. And
did you say it's mainly hitting the south of England?
Southwest and northern England, but you should expect, hopefully.
What about here in Leeds? Are we going to be safe?
I don't know. Leeds. But it rains out all the time. It's hard to tell.
Is this a hurricane or is this on normal weather? What's going on?
But if you live in Cornwall and Dorset, that's just wear your raincoats.
I actually do feel sorry for that part of the country. They're the ones who do tend to get battered.
I know.
Completely.
Last winter in January we had like 25 storms, one after each other.
Ridiculous. It really was, particularly on that south coast. But I love Cornwall, so I like it when it's sunny though.
When it's not raining.
When it's not raining.
It's not raining.
It's lovely when it's not raining, but Cornwall is absolutely beautiful. So I'm sure
they'll be fine.
It'll still be all right with the rain, but it's a very beautiful part of the country.
It is.
But this story actually reminds me of, I don't know if you heard about it in the 80s, when we had the Great Storm.
No.
In England, which was also the tail end of a hurricane.
Yes.
Which hit England, and I actually watched a documentary which was about, the most ridiculous things that happened in the 80s or something. And the top spot was Michael Fish, who used to be on the Weather Channel, the News Weather Channel. And he got all these calls from people like, oh, we've heard there's going to be a hurricane in England. Like, what's should we be worried and all this? He then went on national TV that night and said, don't worry, everybody. It's fine. Yes. There's going to be no hurricane. You're all safe.
Yes.
That night, thousands of homes were destroyed.
Yes.
Areas without power. Several people got injured. Lots of people in the hospital, and yeah, I don't think he's ever lived that down since then.
I think the Met Office got into a lot of trouble for that.
I think they did because and I'm sure it wasn't just him as well. People did say to him, "Look, it's fine." The professionals who were behind the scientists.
To be fair, I mean, it's not really a hurricane. By the time it reaches England, because to make a hurricane, you need warm water, and believe it or not, England is not very warm. The waters around England. And so the hurricane loses its energy. And so it sort of dies off by the time it gets to England. So what's left of it is, there's just a bit of strong wind and a bit of rain.
I suppose it's not the scale to be classed as a hurricane,
No,
is
it's more of a storm. We call it a storm, and we get plenty of those.
But obviously the papers like to post, hurricane hitting the UK.
Exactly, it's news.
Just because they like to, panic everyone into buying their newspaper to find out how they can save themselves, really. I do sometimes enjoy how newspapers tend to blow it a bit out of proportion.
They always do.
Of course, it's their job to do that.
Well, while we're talking about hurricanes, I'm going to tell you some interesting things about hurricanes. Do you know how you make a hurricane? What is the recipe for a hurricane?
Lots of wind, water.
That's what causes. That's the result of a hurricane. What do you actually need? Yes, warm water, particular.
Warm water. Why in particular warm water?
Mainly because the warm water rises in the air. So in warm tropical oceans, the warm water increases evaporation of water, which goes up into the air and makes rain clouds, etc. But if you have particularly warm water, it gets more evaporation and more bigger clouds. And because the Earth spins, it makes these clouds spin around, which is why you get this really classic spiral shape of hurricanes. But incidentally, do you know which direction a hurricane spins in the northern hemisphere?
Oh wait, I've been asked this and I've completely forgotten it. Is it anti-clockwise in the north? Yes.
So I believe hurricanes spin in the northern hemisphere. A hurricane will spin anti-clockwise, and in the southern hemisphere, it will spin clockwise. And that's to do with the wind speed, the wind directions, and the spin of the Earth. It's called the Coriolis effect.
The Coriolis effect, yes. Because it's opposite the way the winds spin.
Exactly.
The winds blow
the trade winds are different. Yeah, north and southern hemispheres. That's due to the spin of the Earth. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, if you didn't know that, that's quite an amazing fact
There we go.
to know.
And it won't be classed as a hurricane until the wind speeds are 74 miles an hour at least.
That's fast.
It's quite fast.
That is very fast.
Well, it's quite fast, but the hurricane that's coming towards us, it had a top wind speeds of about 174 miles an hour.
When it was over Bermuda?
When it was over Bermuda, yes.
Oh, wow. They must have been absolutely battered.
Quite fast, yes. Well, apparently half of the population, the electricity just died for half of the population, so...
Oh, man.
They're big events and quite destructive.
Yeah. Jeez, wow.
So,
See why they get the reputation
I hope
now.
no one's scared. We're not trying to scare people. These are just cool facts.
And the one hitting the UK is definitely not going to be 100 miles an hour, just to make that absolutely clear if anyone is panicking. What should be ridiculous now I've just said that? We'll do a Michael Fish moment where we just said it.
Well, you said it, not me.
Point the blame at me if it is dreadful now. Oh, thank you very much, Ekbal. Thank you for that.
So the main problems with hurricanes is actually, like you mentioned, the wind. The winds can be quite high. In big hurricanes, they can actually uproot houses and fly off cars, trees. They can. So those are really devastating hurricanes. But those happen in the US a lot. And
you see the damage from them. It's ridiculous. I mean, Hurricane Katrina, the damage that left was ridiculous.
It's a lot. In fact, Hurricane Katrina is the most costliest hurricane of all, costing like over $100 billion in damage.
$100 billion.
Yeah,
wow,
it's a lot of money in those things.
Where does that money come from as well for all the repairs? Because I'm sure the government can't.
Well, the US, most Western countries have a, what do they call it? A disaster fund, which has a bit of money to manage emergencies. But obviously, I guess they weren't expecting $100 billion of damage.
$100 billion, that is, you can just tell how bad it was just from the money that, it's... Oh, wow. It's just the damage is just... Oh.
Well, so there's the wind and the rain, of course, which cause flooding. So hurricane is one thing. Then it starts... initiates floods because of all the rain. So that's also something people need to consider in the hurricane-prone regions. So, and so flood management is quite important. And more importantly, actually, I think, is if you live by the coast, it's storm surges, and these are giant waves. So that come in with, especially if they come in with the tide, which makes them higher. And they come in and they have a lot of energy. They can batter the coastline and cause a lot of damage. And some good examples were from the storms in January, where they had huge storm surges that literally ripped off parts of the cliff faces and just destroyed the coastline. So imagine a hurricane doing that.
I
so
know.
those are from storms.
It's quite bad enough over here.
Yeah,
I remember when that was going on, and like trees near where I lived in Leeds were just being blown onto the roads, and you just think in a real proper hurricane how much worse it'd be. I mean, people were freaking out just at this, and
oh gosh,
you just think you just wouldn't appreciate it unless you'd been in a real
They're
hurricane.
Pretty violent things.
Oh, wow. Understatement of the year.
Yeah.
Pretty violent.
Speaking of violence, actually, the largest, unfortunately, death toll from a hurricane was from Cyclone Bola. I should say I should say this actually before. Do you know what the difference is between a cyclone, a hurricane, and a typhoon?
Go on. What is the difference?
They're all the same thing. A cyclone, a hurricane, and a typhoon are all the same thing. So you might hear in the news, typhoon this, or cyclone this, or hurricane this. They're all talking about the same spinning giant weather storm. Then the name differences come from where they happen. So in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific, any storm like this is called a hurricane. Whereas any storms that these kind of storms that happen in the Indian Ocean are called cyclones, and any ones that happen in the Western Atlantic, Western Pacific even, and which hit Japan, etc., are called typhoons. So it's just a geographic name difference, which is
Is there any real reason for it, or is it just because different countries decide to name it different things?
I don't know.
Is it
I
different
think,
in any way?
That might have been the cause. I actually don't know why they've decided to call it different things in different places.
Maybe it's to do just like generally how they refer to it. So if they say typhoon, they know it's happening in that part of the world.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it could be. I really have no idea.
We have no idea.
I really have no idea.
Wikipedia.
Maybe if you at home have an idea why it's named that, or actually know, maybe you could message us on Facebook again.
On Facebook, indeed.
And tell us why you think it's the name is different for each one. But all very fascinating stuff.
Do you know what's am I talking too long about hurricanes?
No, by all means, keep going. Keep going.
Do you remember Hurricane Sandy that hit the US? I think it was 2010.
Yes, I know Hurricane Sandy.
That was a particularly huge event, and that was because a really, really rare event. It was an actual hurricane that comes from the tropics, from the equator, that goes up along the coast of the US, and then a winter storm came from the north, from the Arctic. A winter storm, a big storm like this, and then they both merged together.
Wow! So they merged into one big storm.
Into one giant hybrid superstorm.
Wow! I bet.
Which is why Hurricane Sandy was so devastating. In fact, wasn't that the one where it flooded New York City for like a few days? It was in the news, wasn't it? Was that Sandy? Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I remember it now. The effects of it were were quite devastating as well. But I actually didn't realise, or maybe I forgot, that it was actually two storms.
Yeah, it's a hybrid storm.
That emerged. Oh, wow, reason to panic then. Just big storm coming here. Oh wow, no, that's.
And the bullseye was New York.
Yeah.
This is like those disaster movies that they're
it
all over
is,
the
you know,
like, it's New York.
Like, you know, the day after tomorrow, 2012, all these crazy things that happen, and it's maybe this is the beginning of our own. Just saying that, I don't actually believe that. I don't want to panic people at home to think that there is actually kind of the apocalypse coming.
We're being very careful.
We are good at monitoring things now as well. So
that's enough about hurricanes. If you want to know more about hurricanes, I have a blog about hurricanes. So I'll post a link on our Facebook page so you can read all about them and how they're made and what kind of why they're dangerous and some key, really interesting facts about hurricanes and what we can do in them, how we can save ourselves, basically.
Okay, yeah, we'll post a link to that blog on the Facebook page, as you just said. So if you guys want to find out more about these fascinating things about hurricanes or anything else geological, then please go and visit Ekbal's blog, because it's pretty cool. I've read it myself, and it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Cool. Okay, the next bit of news I want to talk about was apparently increasing temperatures, and we should be expecting more ferocious wildfires due to climate change, and some scientists think that by the end of the century, 2090, we'll have a 200% increase in forest fire damage in Europe. It's quite shocking, isn't it? It's like 200% increase.
Massive amount of forest fire damage. I mean, I have no idea what it's like now in Europe.
Yeah.
I know it's quite devastating, particularly in Australia as well. They have a lot of forest fires, and I remember reading an article similar to this about how it is expecting to get worse in Australia as well because of
it's getting drier.
Yeah.
Well, they're expecting more forest fires, and a little digression from this. More forest fires in California, because I don't know whether you know that California's been going through a rather severe drought over the past few years.
I have heard
it's
of it.
Getting worse and worse actually, and they've had a lot more forest fires recently than the average they were expecting because there's not enough water in the landscape.
So
and fires are coming off everywhere. Yeah.
Wow,
it's quite scary.
Aren't we going to California in December?
Shh, don't tell people. Yes, if we're burnt to death, guys, you know what happened.
Blame climate change.
But no, we'll be going to a city, hopefully. So hopefully the cities won't be burning. And it's going to be winter, so it's okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot about that. That's actually really good now. I'm glad I've remembered that. Thank you for reminding me. We're safe.
Oh, no, we are. But actually, back to the study. The study says that if you use preventive fires, you can reduce this damage from 200% to 50%. So
that's quite a big come down.
So what do they mean about preventive fires? It's essentially what they're saying is it's purposely starting fires in regions where they think are highly susceptible to forest fires. So if you can set it up purposely, and you can control it and manage where it goes and stop it when you think it's enough. But I don't know, that's quite controversial. I know it's widely used in some places, but you need proper scientific backing before you can set a forest alight, for example.
You do. I mean, I've recently come back from South Africa, and these kind of fires are used a heck of a lot in South Africa. Like just where we were staying on the horizon, you can quite often see, smoke rising in masses because from these controlled fires that people are doing all over the area, and it's just all to do with kind of the ecology, really, to kind of cut back the landscape. Really, kind of imagine your garden and it's a bit overgrown. Well, the way they deal with it in Africa is basically start a fire. And it's also very good for the animals as well, because the new shoots that kind of come out of the ashes, all these animals you see kind of swamped to the burnt patches and like feeding on these little shoots, which I'm really surprised that there are enough left to actually grow the landscape again, because the amount that they eat, because they're very they have a lot of starch in them, so they're very sugary, so the animals really enjoy them. And I'm surprised that they don't kind of run out of plants.
Well, I should hope not, otherwise,
it's very carefully managed, particularly on these reserves. That you don't kind of appreciate how much work goes into managing the ecology of some of these game reserves in Africa, because essentially, it is I don't like saying this, but, they are essentially very big zoos, like with, massive areas of land, except all the animals can interact. And obviously it's still fenced off, so you do have to manage what is inside these fences. Everything from the plants to, how many lions in the zoo. If there's too many lions, then, you get a massive loss of prey species. There's nothing to, rejuvenate that. So... yeah, it's kind of going it from base level with these controlled fires, how they try and control the ecology of the landscape. So,
yep. So, climate change is bad. Conclusion.
If you didn't know that already, climate change is bad.
Please switch off your lights when you leave the room. You might stop forest fires in Europe.
Really?
Well,
I suppose it's all to do with being green.
Yeah. Well, actually, this study says that 95% of all forest fires we have now can be prevented if we just if we were careful where we light our campfires and not smoke in forests and woodlands.
No.
How about that? 95% of the fires could be just stopped anyway.
They can, and you do hear so many stories where people have been a bit careless.
Yeah.
And caused massive amount of damage by, just a cigarette, just flowing it away.
Oh, there was a really interesting story. I think, where was it now? Somewhere in California where this really, really ancient tree, I think it's like a 4,000-year-old tree that got burnt because one lady, it was a hollow tree at the base.
I heard about this, yes.
And the lady went into this base and she was having drugs. Bad. And she built a little campfire inside the base of this hollow tree. And this tree, I think, was like 4,000 years old.
Yeah, it was something like that.
And the poor thing just went up in flames. Oh dear. It's really bad, eh?
Yeah.
So be careful where you light your campfires and don't smoke in forests.
Okay, there you go, people. Listen to that advice and let's prevent these forest fires.
Please do.
Because these are obviously not as controlled either, so,
it
just runs rampage, really, so...
It's bad.
No, not
good
at all.
Before I come to the end of my bit, one nice bit of news. Some of you Earth Science people might have known that the last week was Earth Science Week, National Earth Science Week.
It was.
Yeah. And so throughout the country, lots of cool events for kids, adults, etc., to promote the earth sciences, geology, sustainability, oceanography, everything about our Earth. It was great fun, lots of great events throughout the country. My favourite event was actually the Geological Society of London, the home of geology in the UK.
To which Ekbal is a fellow.
I am a fellow,
I will
apparently.
add that there. Don't know what that means, but it's pretty big.
Well, me neither, but I'm a fellow. Yes, so they've released their 100 great geosites within the UK, and Emma and I have been looking through them, and we've picked our favourites. Emma, what's your favourite?
Anyone in Cornwall, because it gives me a reason to go to Cornwall and visit it.
Unless you've noticed, Emma's quite fascinated with Cornwall.
I love Cornwall. We used to go there all the time when we were kids, and it's just so good. And there's one that you actually showed me the other day, Ekbal, with these. Where's the rocks kind of folded on top of each other?
Yeah, that's my favourite. Miller Cave in Cornwall, again, I should say.
Yes, woo!
This is a really cool area where you can see the cliff face is made of lots of folded, and we call them chevron folds in geology. It's like the cliff face is full of folded rocks. And that's actually a remnant of when southern England was in a collision with what was once called Baltica, and made a little mountain chain.
Baltica?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
It was a little microcontinent that collided with southern England and made a little mountain chain.
Oh, wow.
And that's the remnants of an ancient mountain chain.
Because it's literally just the rock is zigzagging.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Incredible.
You guys can see the pictures. If you go onto the Geological Society website, you can find all the pictures. We'll post all the links on our Facebook page.
We will.
And also the BBC News article has some really cool pictures of all these great sites. Another cool thing is Assynt in Scottish Island. Now it looks like a picture from Middle Earth, doesn't it?
It really does. It's definitely something taken out of Lord of the Rings, really, isn't it?
It's amazing. I think the first year geologists get taken there for a field trip.
Oh, lucky them.
I know.
Lucky them. Right. In Leeds, is this?
Yeah, in Leeds.
Well, reason to come and do geology in Leeds, then.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're promoting the course. I should get paid for doing this, shouldn't I?
We're just going to say, yes, we're talking about it in your radio show. Give us some money. But, looking through these pictures now, you wouldn't believe some of them are from the UK.
I know.
You really wouldn't.
The UK is actually one of the greatest places to do earth sciences because... this is the country where the science came about. Geology was almost invented in the UK. So it's a kind of special place to study earth sciences. And we've got some really cool things to look at, particularly in Scotland and southern England. Those two parts of the world of the UK are pretty special for geology.
They really
One of my
are.
favourite places is Lulworth Cove. If any of you guys have been to Lulworth Cove, do say so, because I love it. It's absolutely beautiful.
What in particular do you like about it?
On the Jurassic Coast, in Dorset. It's just amazing. There's a really cool place called Durdle Door. Which is this
Durdle Door?
Yeah, it's this rock formation that's hanging out over the ocean. And it's like this big archway over this into the sea. It's really cool.
That is an incredible name. That just makes you
Durdle
want to
Door,
visit.
right? Yeah.
Going back to what we say about Middle Earth before, that's like somewhat on Lord of the Rings. The place Durdle Door. Yeah. It's like, I bet that was taken from this. Clearly, that was taken from this.
He must have.
But that's
Tolkien
cool
was
name.
a geologist. That's proven.
But no, that is really cool. I have always wanted to visit the Jurassic Coast. I've never been before, but I have always wanted to go there.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah,
yes.
I know people who have been, and they have said, seriously, go. It is, So that's our bit of advice: go and see the Jurassic Coast or any of these geological sites. They're
amazing. There's some really cool places within the Leeds area and Harrogate. So it won't take you too far out of your comfort zone to travel a bit.
There is actually a couple on the list from Yorkshire, isn't there?
Yeah,
some nice waterfall features and things like that. They actually are near Yorkshire. So if you want to go and look at the website on either the BBC or on the Geological Society website, well, like I said, we'll post a link. And just go and have a look and see what's in your local area, and you can go and have a wonder and see these fascinating geological sites. And let us know if you do go to some of them, and tell us what it was like.
Post a picture and I'll tell you about the geology on the Facebook page.
There you go, our local expert here, so it's all good. It's all good. Anyway, I'm afraid to say that's all we've got time for today. We're pretty much out of time. So, thank you very, very much for joining us today on our first show. We are back at the same time next Saturday at 2:30 p.m. So, please do not miss it if you enjoyed this session. It's only going to get better, that's all I can say.
It will most definitely be.
It will. And thank you, Ekbal, for joining me as well.
Thank you.
And, let's all hope that he's going to be with me as my co-host for the rest of the year.
Fingers crossed.
If PhD doesn't get in the way.
I need to hire someone to do my PhD for me. I didn't say that.
I was about to say at the beginning, don't say that again. You've just mentioned it again. Oh, great. Oh. So, if you haven't gathered from us mentioning it several times, we are on Facebook. So, our page is called Natural World, like the name of our show, of course. So, please go and look for it. Like the page, because that is where we will be posting all the information and, everything you need to know about upcoming shows, what's coming up. And like I said, if you have a question to ask either me or Ekbal, then please just send us a message, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Or if you have any photos of geological features or cool wildlife you've seen, we really want to hear all that as well. So if you do ask us a question, we might even include it in our next show.
Oh yes.
So you can get involved in the show yourself. So you're very welcome to that. And like I mentioned before, I'll just mention it again. Ekbal's, you've got a blog and also a Facebook page for this blog.
I do, yes.
Which what is it called?
It's called climate.wordpress.com. I'll post a link onto the Facebook page.
Okay, so keep an eye on the Facebook page, and you'll see all the information there. I do have my own blog as well, which is eyeonwildlife.com, which, as you imagine, is all purely wildlife based. So depending on what your interests are, talk to either me or Ekbal. That's all I can say there. So, thank you very much again, Ekbal.
Thank
you for watching, listening at home. And to play us out, Ekbal has chosen us a lovely song by Frank Turner, which
I love this song.
This is one of my favourites, actually. I really like this song. And it is I Still Believe. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week.
Bye.